What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Donnie B here. You know, there's a lot of new cameras coming out. It's an exciting time, but I figured why not talk about a camera that's already been out for a while? Why? Well, because we're working class here on this channel, and you got to work with what you got. So, today we're going to be talking about the Canon R8, and I got to tell you, I was sleeping on it. And if you're watching this video, you probably slept on it too. This is an amazing camera for an amazing price. Let's talk about it.
Point at the map and we'll get there somehow. The sky ain't falling, let's get out of this town. Our time is vital and we're making it count. Doing what we can to show them who we are now. Okay, yeah.
So real quick, I'm just going to go over some of the specs and some of the features of it, and then we'll go over some test shots and test footage. I do want to say, though, I will rave about it. It's a great camera, especially for the price. There are some things that I don't like. There are some things that I tolerate. But for the most part, it's a lot for the money. You get a lot for... actually, this one I picked up as a refurb for $8.99. I see that on sale every now and then. If you see it, you might want to grab it if you're in the market for it because they sell out quick. But for the most part, they're usually on sale for $11.99 or $12.99, depending on where you shop. I think Adorama's got it for $11.99 right now. Best Buy and B&H both have it for $12.99. Check the Canon website. You can get on a list there, and they'll notify you when the refurbs come on market. But $8.99, I couldn't pass it up. Especially since I gave my daughter my old B cam, which was the EOS R, which was a huge step up. One way that Canon was able to cut a lot of the cost out was by repurposing the RP body. I don't know how many of the RPs they sold. It was the same price point, around $1,000, and it was nowhere near as feature packed as this. Same body, same button layout or lack of buttons, but for the most part, this is a stripped down version of the R6 Mark II. And when I say stripped down, I mean it. So as it sits with the plate, the Peak Design clips, the cap with a Samsung tracker Velcroed in it, this weighs only 500 grams. So super small, compact, lightweight, packs up small, but that's also one of the things that I tolerate. So as you can see here, the grip is a 3-finger grip. My pinky is just kind of hanging off the bottom. That's a little annoying. It's okay when you're shooting with primes, small lenses, things like that. But when you start adding like 70 to 200s or 100s to 400s, things like that, it gets real front heavy real quick, and it can be kind of uncomfortable to hold for long periods of time. At first glance, it looks like a boring consumer grade camera, but there really is a lot up under the hood. So, starting with the top, it looks just like the Canon RP with the exception of that photo video toggle switch. You got your thumb wheel, your mode dial, and your shutter speed wheel. On the side, you have your headphone jack, microphone jack, the port for your remote shutter. There is a micro HDMI. Those are absolutely horrible. Canon actually has stepped up with the R5 II, and I believe the R6 III is probably going to have full-size HDMI, but we're still stuck with the micro for now. And like I said, there's a 3.2 Gen 2 USB-C. And nothing on the other side of it. Absolutely nothing. No door, nothing. The back is equally boring with the lack of buttons and joystick and even a thumb wheel. I really thought I was going to miss that more than I actually do. I even went as far as to buy the EF to RF adapter with the control ring. Turns out I don't adjust aperture on the fly all that much, so I just set my ISO to the thumb wheel and shutter speed to the front. What do you call that? Finger wheel? I don't know, that dial right there. The EVF is a bit lacking, but if you're stepping up from, say, the R or the RP, you probably won't notice. But if you're using this as a B cam for, say, a R5 or a R6, you'll definitely notice it's not quite up to the same standard that you're used to. It's a 0.39, 2.3 million dot OLED with a 0.7 magnification. The articulating flippy screen is an LCD. It's 3-inch with 1.5 million dots. It's not the greatest either. It works. Battery. The battery is another complaint I have, but what can you expect? Again, from this price point. So it's using the Canon LPE17. If you've come from the Rebel days or the RP, then you probably have a pile of these already. So the battery life for photo was not terrible. I shot an entire wedding. I went through 2 batteries. So I guess I'm averaging about 500 to 600 shots per battery, which is pretty decent. It's not horrible. Video, that's a completely different story. It's actually so bad that I have a dummy battery that whenever I have it locked off on this tripod, I just have that plugged in directly. And if you are using a dummy battery, it has the little spot for the cable to go through on the side there, which is nice to have. Actually, I think all of them have it. I don't even know if that's like a unique feature, but it's still, it was very necessary, especially if you're going to be using this for a live stream. Also, the SD card, it is a single slot UHS 2. It is located right next to the battery, underneath the battery door. I don't know why, but I hate that it's right there. That bothers me more than it being a single card slot. You know, I know every YouTuber says this, but I've never had a card fail. But just to be safe, whenever I'm dumping the footage off of this camera to my computer, I never remove that card. I always plug it in USB. I just feel like it's safer that way, because typically if you do have a problem, it's going to be from the time you take it out to put it in your computer. So if everything's reading fine in camera, I just use USB, send it that way. It is a USB 3.2 Gen 2, so it copies fairly quick. Right now, the moneymaker, the camera sensor. It does share the same 24 megapixel sensor that the R6 Mark II has. Some say it's a derivative of the one from the R3. I don't know how much I believe that, but one thing it does not share is the IBIS, the mechanical shutter, and the dust cover whenever you cut the camera off. That might not be a big deal to some of you. It's not a deal breaker for me, but I do shoot a lot of sports, and being out on the softball field, changing lenses and things like that, I have had to clean this sensor twice in the past few months that I've been using it. For the most part, with the electronic first curtain shutter is fine. You only get 6 frames per second that way. Doing portraits and using flashes, I haven't had any issues using an electronic first curtain. When shooting portraits with off-camera flash, I haven't had any issues with sync speed or even high-speed sync. One downside to the first curtain is that the max is 1/4000th of a second. When doing sports and things like that, I'm typically in electronic shutter. That's when you get that 40 frames per second, and that shutter speed maxes out at 1/16,000th of a second. So if you're in electronic first curtain and you're shooting in bright daylight, then you might need to use an ND or stop down if you're using a fast lens, because you might not be able to reach the shutter speed you need to get the right exposure. Oh, it also supports pre-capture up to a half a second before you press the shutter button. This is huge for those of you that like to do wildlife or sports. I've used this a lot. One thing that would have been nice is if the files that were captured during pre-capture actually were highlighted in some sort of a way, so you can know which ones were pre-capture and which ones were after the shutter was depressed. It also has Canon's dual pixel autofocus 2 with subject detection. It's absolutely amazing. You can choose which subject you're actually shooting manually, like whether it's automobile, a train, plane, animals, or human. I leave it in auto. It works great. I've never had the issue where it didn't pick up on what I was shooting. It didn't know automatically. There is no joystick, which, you know, it's a bummer, but it does have touch and drag, where you just put your thumb on the back of the LCD and you can drag it to select your autofocus points. And you can set it up to where you touch and drag the left side, the right side, or the whole. You can actually pick the area that you use for the touchpad. That's pretty cool. I used it a lot on the EOS R. I don't really use it that much now with this one because it selects the subject so quickly. The sensor does have 100% coverage with autofocus points, so it's not like the old days where you just had like the few dots in the middle. It literally is the full sensor coverage. And before we move on to video, I do just want to talk about the buffer, or lack thereof. So the buffer is about 1.5 seconds at 40 frames per second, so you're looking at about a 60 shot buffer. You really need to learn to manage that shutter button whenever you're 40 frames per second. If you just hold it down, you're going to run out quick. But if you just learn to pace and just brr, 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 you know, I never had an issue whenever I held restraint. But if you got somebody sliding in a third base and you're picking them up at shortstop and you're just going, brrr, yeah, you're going to run out. You're not going to make it to third base. So you really got to learn to manage that. But other than that, that's it works great for sports. Hey,
Am I on there?
it's recording. Look how well lit we are.
Butterfly kisses. Let's get more kisses. We are.
Now, I know this isn't listed as a great hybrid camera, but it really is a great hybrid camera. You do get a lot for your money with this thing. So, for starters, it has 4K 60 uncropped, that is oversampled from 6K, has internal 422 10-bit recording, C-Log 3. You get 180 frames per second in full HD. There's live stream support, so you can use it as a webcam. I use it all the time for like Google Duo or Google Meets, even therapy sessions. I mean, it just works great. You plug it in, the computer recognizes it. You can pick the microphone, all that. And it also supports vertical recording for those of you that like to create shorts or TikToks. There is one downside to the video aspect. There's no such thing as a perfect camera, and that is at 4K 30, there is only a 2-hour record limit, which is a huge step up from what it used to be at 30 minutes. Both the RP and the EOS R had a 30-minute record limit. Now, the R6, it has no record limit. Now, you'll run out of battery or SD card before you hit that limit. You know, if you got the budget for it, the R6 II is definitely the better camera. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison in a later video, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to check that out. But I mean, I've recommended this camera to so many people, and everyone I know that's purchased it has absolutely loved it. Like I genuinely take this out by itself and will leave the R6 II at home on numerous occasions just because of how, when I pair it up with this 35, it is just a small, nice walk-around combo. All right, now we switched over to the R8. So this is the video that you can expect to get out of a studio setting. So we're at 4K 30 under studio lights. And I just wanted to go over some of the images that I've taken with it, especially with sports and things like that. So if you see right here, we've got a image of a softball player at bat, and this is with the electronic shutter, and this is at 1/1000th of a second. So you can see how the bat is just a little bit distorted. You can see it's kind of hooking just a little bit. I probably could have increased my shutter speed and eliminated that altogether. The ball looks pretty crispy though, but the bat is just a little bit wonky. Not terrible, but it looks good. You can actually see. Let's see right here. See how that ball? Usually the bat is perfectly straight, and the ball looks bad from the ones that I've noticed. But typically, whenever I'm shooting softball, I'm always at 1/1000th of a second, and wide open aperture. You see here, I have another one. I was actually really proud of this image. It actually, I don't know, it was one of my favorite. I actually sent this to every one of the players that are in this photo right here. But you can see I got the dirt kicked up right there and then the ball in her hand. That is a crispy shot with electronic shutter. So this is edited, of course, but I shot that at 1/1250th of a second at 200 millimeters at 640 ISO f2.8. I typically always shoot wide open, but that's just a crispy shot. I mean, I've not been disappointed one single time when it comes to the R8. And you can't tell the difference between the R8 and the R6 when it comes to image quality. It's just there. You can, if you're doing weddings, you don't have to worry about, as long as you have your white balance set the same, which, you know, that's probably the first thing I do is I check the white balance on both cameras. But as long as your white balance is the same, you will not have to worry about them looking different. Honestly, my plan was just to leave this camera locked off in here. That way I didn't have to set up every time I wanted to record, and just take it with me every now and then when I needed it. Whenever I had a paid shoot or was doing some kind of big event or something like that, then I would take it as a backup. But honestly, I really do take it a lot more than I ever thought I would. All right, so that photo I just showed you was edited, but I just wanted to run through this whole sequence right here. So this is where it all started. You can see it did miss focus just a little bit, but that's probably the fact that I'm using Tamron lenses. I'm not using, you know, Canon glass. So the Tamron does miss a few. Other than that, it's a great lens. But you can see I basically just a little burst shot right here. So boom, boom. Oh, here we go. This is another one. So this is the start. A little blown out on the face. Here's the edit. But this is the whole sequence right here. Boom, boom. And she's safe. Oh, she's out. Cut that foot off, didn't I? So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 22 shots in a row. That's Jalen. Jalen always slides for me. Underexposed there. That's all EVF right there. It was just hard to see. Yeah, she'll slide. This is on turf, y'all. But see, with that 40 frames per second, you were just able to capture so much. I think that was actually pre-shoot too. I think I hit the shutter right about. Here. I just love when you can see the dirt flying up like that. All right, the last one we'll go over is this is probably one of the worst dogs in the world, and you can tell because his nose is dirty. That means he's been digging. If you look right here, that's probably Lauren chasing him after he had been digging a hole. But as you can see, it just locks right onto his eyeball. Look how crispy that is. That's an automatic subject detection too. That's not an animal or anything like that. It's just automatic. Picked up on the dog's eye. It'll even pick up on the dog's back eye. You know what I mean? I actually put the Shimbal recorder on and actually recorded some of these shots. You can see here how easily it just locks on to whatever you're pointing at, whether I'm pointing at Lauren or whether I'm pointing at the dog, whether it's Chooch or Snoot, it just locks right onto that eye and keeps on trucking. Like the Canon AF2 system is just incredible. I don't really know in contrast how good it is compared to other cameras because I don't really use other cameras. My first camera was a Canon and I'm still shooting Canon to this day because lenses are incredibly expensive. But I've been really, really satisfied with the autofocus in the Canon cameras. Now it's miles ahead of their first dual pixel autofocus. Whenever I went from the R to the R6, I just could not believe how sticky that autofocus really is. But you won't be disappointed. Like I said, get on that list that is on Canon's website. You can say notify me when available, and you can get a refurbished unit for less than $1,000. And I highly recommend grabbing it if you have it in the budget. Now, I'm kind of sour when it comes to Canon and their lens system because they don't allow the third-party lenses, but they are doing a great job of coming out with lenses that are more budget friendly. You know, they got the 28 to 70 now. They got the 16 to 35. These are all great lenses from what I can tell. I'm a huge Tamron fan. I use Tamrons every single day. I'm shooting on a Tamron now, 24 to 70. This is the 35 1.4, and I just adapt them. I got an adapter on that camera. I got an adapter for this camera. I just have to adapt. But the reason I say all that is because this camera here is kind of what most people buying this camera are going to be buying that type of lens. You're going to be getting the 50 1.8 and the 24 1.8 or 2.8. You're going to be getting those more budget-friendly lenses, and I think they pair up great with the smaller grip. You know, you're just not going to be too heavy on it. It's just a great first camera, a great backup camera. I have not been disappointed at all. I just can't stress that enough. Most new Canon cameras they have a fantastic readout speed. You know, this is both this one and the R6 II have a 14.9 millisecond readout speed, which is in the good territory. It's not in the great, but it's definitely not in the bad. So rolling shutters, not really that big of a deal. It's just a great camera, especially if you're wanting to do videos like this and also take photos, or I don't know. It's just a good all-around camera. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. If you found this at all helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. This was not a paid or sponsored video. I did purchase this camera with my own money, but I will leave affiliate links in the description below. If you plan to pick up the R8, that will directly support the channel. As always, take care of yourselves. You know you deserve it. I'm Donnie B, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.